Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be discussing One Day in the Life of Ivan Denisovich by Alexander Solzhenitsyn. Those of you who went to high school in the United States will say that you probably read this. It's one of those selected books that teachers in the United States decided in a certain era were going to be read. I don't know if such books are read these days. American high schools are a bit of a disaster. But I'm going to read a little bit from the afterword by Eric Bogosian to give you some context for what we're going to be reading, and then I'm just going to read excerpts from the text. You are fast asleep. You are dreaming that someone is pounding on your front door. You wake to find that someone is pounding on your front door and shouting. It is late, 3 or 4 in the morning. You stumble through the pitch black and find police in your apartment. You are being arrested. Why? Perhaps because at a dinner party you made an idle comment about politics, and what you had to say has been reported to the authorities. Or in a letter to a friend, you wrote something critical of the government, and a censor has found it. Or someone you don't even know is trying to save his own ass by making accusations against you. For whatever reason, you are now enmeshed in the gulag system. Once inside, it will be very difficult to get out, and you will be gone for a long time. 10 years, maybe 25. There's a good chance no one you know will ever see you again. You are going to Siberia. You are going to the gulag. What was the gulag? It was hundreds upon hundreds of prison camps specializing in hard labor. They dotted the vast Arctic landscape. How big is Siberia? Its landmass is greater than all of Europe. But unlike Europe, it is cold, dark, bleak, and very empty. Before Joseph Stalin forced his citizens into the region, almost no one lived there. Empty as it is, Siberia is also full of valuable mineral ore, diamonds, gold, oil, and where there are forests, timber. In the mid-20th century, Siberia stood as an untapped resource for the USSR. Prisoner slaves provided the young Soviet Empire with a solution to the problem of extracting all these riches. No one is sure which came first, the repression of the people of the USSR or their utility as slaves. But there is no question that over time, the Gulag system became a profitable and essential part of the Soviet economy. Millions of people were arrested, sent to Siberia, and toiled as slaves. Millions died anonymously in the frozen wastes. The sword of the Gulag had 2 edges, each essential to Stalin's Russia. One edge punished those who dared to speak or act against the Soviet system, or Stalin. The other edge was a sharp threat to those who might even consider such action. Stalin the dictator was always on the lookout for insurrection. Before World War II began, he murdered dozens of his top military commanders, fearful they might turn against him. Later, he systematically eliminated many of the original Communist Party members, as well as most of his inner circle of aides and friends. His spies were everywhere. The trials were incessant. All of this was a form of insurance against Papa Joe being deposed. If there was any possibility at all that a particular group of people, let's say composers or artists, might harbor 1 or 2 anti-Stalin critics, Stalin packed all of them away to Siberia. They disappeared. Often they died in the camps. For Stalin, it was better to be safe than sorry. The very existence of the Gulag system was enough to keep the average person fearful and silent. The knock on the door could come at any time. The best insurance against arrest was to keep your mouth shut. Never voice an opinion or break any of the myriad central planning rules. Perhaps the most chilling aspect of Stalin's Gulag system was that it was secret. When people were sent away, no one was really sure where they went or what exactly happened to them. One Day in the Life of Ivan Denisovich changed all that. I probably read this book when I was 17 or 18. I really don't think I appreciated it. It was, I think, much too abstract for me to really appreciate what was going on. And I came back to it maybe 15, 20 years later and really appreciated it as I had studied more about Russia, Russian history, and about the march of communism everywhere. And as we saw in First They Killed My Father, a review I did about the Khmer Rouge in Cambodia, I'll put a link in the description as well as a card for that review. This is what communism does. We have documentation of what happens when communism is implemented in countries. Millions of people die. This is supposed to be the great liberator. And remember that it's talked about there has to be liberation through blood. This is how it is. And yet the blood just keeps flowing And it doesn't stay, the system never establishes itself. It's always just based on murder and lies and informants. And this is what communism offers as its great fix. Um, Obviously, we know that capitalism is problematic in a number of ways, but not to the extent that communism is. And I have plenty of time for criticisms of capitalism. We can get to that in another review sometime. But I just want to underline the common thread that we see in this and other reviews I've done about situations of communism, that the record is always the same. Murder, informing, destroying societies, destroying families. This is how communism works endemically. And this is why it has to be fought, condemned, and the church has always done that. And that's something that we need to continue to fight, as every generation that doesn't read thinks that communism is some romantic ideal that just hasn't been tried yet. It has been tried numerous times, and it has failed. But, he recalled, now they didn't let you lie in bed even in the camp infirmary. A new doctor had arrived with one of the latest replacements, Stepan Grigorievich, a fussy, loud-voiced fellow who gave neither himself nor his patients any peace. He invented jobs in and around the infirmary for all the patients who could stand on their feet. Fencing the garden, laying paths, bringing soil to the flower beds, and in wintertime, erecting snow barriers. Work, he said, was a first-rate medicine for any illness. You could overwork a horse to death. That the doctor ought to understand. If he'd been sweating blood laying blocks, he'd quiet down. You could be sure of that. Vodovushkin went on with his writing. He was indeed doing some work on the side, but it was something beyond Zhukov's understanding. He was making a fair copy of a long new poem that he'd finished the previous evening and had promised to show that day to Stepan Grigorievich, the doctor who advocated work therapy. As can happen only in camps, Stepan Grigorievich had advised Vodovushkin to describe himself as a medical assistant and had taken him on at the infirmary and taught him to make intravenous injections on ignorant prisoners. To those innocent minds, it could never occur that Vodovushkin wasn't a medical assistant at all. Vodovushkin had been a university student of literature, arrested while still in his second year. The doctor wanted him to write when in prison what he'd been given no opportunity to write in freedom. The signal for the roll call was barely audible through the double-paned, frost-blurred windows. Zhukov heaved a sigh and stood up. He still had that feverish chill, but evidently he wouldn't be able to skip work. Vodovushkin reached for the thermometer and read it. Neither one thing nor the other. 99.2. If it had been 100, it would have been clear to anyone. I can't exempt you. Stay behind at your own risk, if you like. The doctor will examine you. If he considers you're ill, he'll exempt you. If he finds you fit, he won't. Then you'll be locked up. You better go back to work. Zhukov said nothing. He didn't even nod. Pulling his hat over his eyes, he walked out. How can you expect a man who's warm to understand a man who's cold? The cold stung. A murky fog wrapped itself around Zhukov and made him cough painfully. The temperature out there was minus 17 degrees. Zhukov's temperature was 99 degrees. The fight was on. He ran at a jog trot to the barracks. The whole parade ground was deserted. The camp looked empty. It was that brief moment of relaxation when, although everything has been decided, everyone is pretending to himself that there will be no march to work. The sentries sit in warm quarters, their sleepy heads propped against their rifles. It's not all milk and honey for them either, lounging on the watchtowers in such cold. The guards at the main gate tossed coal into the stove. The camp guards in their rooms smoked the last cigarette before searching the barracks. And the prisoners, now clad in all their rags, a rope around their waists, their faces bound from chin to eyes with bits of cloth against the cold, lay on their bunks with their boots on and waited, eyes shut, hearts a-quake, for their squad leader to yell, "Out you go." What was there to look for on a prisoner at the morning roll call? A knife? But knives weren't taken out of the camp. They were brought into it. In the morning, they had to make certain a prisoner wasn't taking 6 pounds of bread with him, meaning to escape with it. There was a time when they were so scared of the quarter-pound hunks the prisoners took to eat with their dinner that each of the squads had to make a wooden case for carrying the whole ration after collecting it, piece by piece, from the men. What they reckoned to gain by this stupidity was beyond imagining. More likely it was just another way of tormenting people, giving them something extra to worry about. It meant taking a nibble at your hunk, making your mark on it, so to speak, and then putting it into the case. But anyway, the pieces were as alike as two peas. They were all off the same loaf. During the march, it preyed on your mind. You tortured yourself by imagining that someone else's bit of the ration might be substituted for yours. Why, good friends quarreled about it, even to the point of fighting. But one day, 3 prisoners escaped in a truck from the worksite and took one of those cases of bread with them. That brought the authorities to their senses. They chopped up all the boxes in the guard room. Everyone carry his own hunk, they said. At this first search, they also had to make sure that no one was wearing civvies under the camp outfit. But after all, every prisoner had had his civvies removed from him down to the very last garment, and they wouldn't be returned, they were told, until they'd served their terms. No one had served his term in this camp. If you're enjoying this content, please consider hitting like or subscribe. It's an easy way to get this content out to people who might not otherwise find it. More depended on the work report than on the work itself. A clever squad leader was one who concentrated on the work report. This was what kept the men fed. He had to prove that work which hadn't been done had been done, to turn jobs that were rated low into ones that were rated high. For this, a squad leader had to have his head screwed on, and to be on the right side of the inspectors. Their palms had to be greased too. But who benefited then from all those work reports? Let's be clear about it. The camp. The camp got thousands of extra rubles from the building organization and so could give higher bonuses to the guard lieutenants, such as to Volkovoy for using his whip. And you? You got an extra 6 ounces of bread for your supper. A couple of ounces ruled your life. This is a recurring theme that we see in these sorts of stories, that hunger becomes everything. Hunger becomes the defining principle. And thinking about food dominates your whole day. You don't have any mental capacity to think about anything else than, when am I going to eat? Because you're being starved slowly. Then there was a rule that food must be eaten in the canteen, but the bowls couldn't be left there overnight. They'd have been swiped by civilians. So about 50, not more, had to be brought in and quickly washed after use and turned over to the next diners, an extra helping for the man who carried the bowls. To make sure that no one took bowls from the canteen, a man had to be posted at the door. But however careful he might be, some people took them just the same, either by distracting his attention or talking him into it. So someone else had to go over the whole site to collect the dirty bowls and bring them back to the kitchen. And he got an extra helping. And many others got one too. All the cook himself did was this. He poured the grits into the pot, adding salt. He divided the fat between the pot and himself. Good fat didn't reach the zeks. The zeks is the name for the people who are in the gulag. And the rancid all went into the soup kettle, so when there was an issue of rancid fat from the warehouse, the zeks welcomed it as an extra. Another thing he did, he stirred the kasha when it was boiling. Kasha is a word for oatmeal. The sanitation inspector had even less to do. He sat and watched, but when the oatmeal was ready to go, he got his helping, as much as his belly would hold, and the cook too. Then the duty squad leader arrived. The squad was changed every day, to have a taste and decide whether the stuff was good enough for the workers. He received a double portion. The whistle sounded again. The squad leaders at once lined up, and the cook handed them bowls through the serving window. In the bottom of the bowls lay some oatmeal. How much you didn't ask, or try to judge by its weight. All you got, if you opened your mouth, was a bunch of swear words. It was at the evening recount on their return through the gates that the prisoners, freezing and famished, found the icy wind hardest to bear. A bowl of thin cabbage soup, half burned, was as welcome to them as rain to parched earth. They'd swallow it in one gulp. That bowl of soup, it was dearer than freedom, dearer than life itself, past, present, and future. He ate his supper without bread, a double helping and bread. That was going too far. The bread would do for tomorrow. The belly is a demon. It doesn't remember how well you treated it yesterday. It'll cry out for more tomorrow. So, not a long read. For those of you who've never read a Russian novel, I don't think this really qualifies as a Russian novel. This is more Russian history written in a fictional form, but it's under 200 pages, so it's something that can get you into Russian literature without necessarily touching Russian novels. Russian novels they're for you to get to at any time. If you want a shorter Russian novel, I'm always going to recommend Ivan Turgenev's Fathers and Sons, which also happens to be my favorite Russian novel. That's a discussion and a review for another time. If you'd like to get a copy of this book, you can do so using the link in the description. It's one of the free and easy ways that you can support this channel. I think hyping as well, whatever that does these days. If you'd like to do so, support the channel in a free way, I've already alluded to, you can hit like, you can hit the subscribe button, share this with people who might not otherwise have heard about this content. If you'd like to thank me for this presentation, there are links to PayPal and Buy Me a Coffee below. If you'd like to get early access to videos like this one, as well as a monthly exclusive video, behind the scenes, what I'm reading, what I'm thinking, there's links to Patreon and YouTube membership. If you'd like to nominate a book for the future, there's my Amazon wish list below. You'll see books on Palestine. Obviously, that's for my Palestine bookshelf project if you'd like to head over and check that out. But all the books that are not about Palestine are for this channel. If you'd like to buy one of the books, send it my way. I will do my best to review it in a timely manner. Until next time, enjoy your reading.